Okay, I am back. I'm sorry this is such UV light. It's a very dark day here today. And I will say this new work area of mine can get quite dark. Okay, so our little book is all gessoed. And as you can see, I went back in and gave some of these a second coat. But I didn't worry so much, I didn't worry so much about the center as much as the edge. Because I'm thinking I'll probably be making a collage in the center part of the pages. As long as the edge is white, that's all that matters to me. So what you can do is if any of the texture of the gesso bothers you, you can go in with an emery board or a little thing of sandpaper and just smooth out the edges. But I have a feeling with this collage it's not going to be necessary. So now we have the little book and we're ready to go. It's all gessoed up. So here are the things you're going to need. You're going to take your little book. I have a little pot of water. And I'm just going to use a Q-tip. But you could also use a water pen if you wanted to, like a watercolor pen. Sometimes that gives you a little bit more control, but I'm all about the cheap and easy. So this is our little Q-tip. I took some Mod Podge and I watered it down. I find that that works better with this kind of tissue paper project. And I always keep extra pieces of washi tape handy and stuck to my glass, and you'll see we'll need that in a minute. And then I went through my napkins, and since this is going to be a little postage stamp collage book, I looked for any piece of napkin that had like a stamp or a postmark on it. This one has a little stamp here. And look at this one. Most of these came from a swap. This is all postage stamps. They're a little bit big, but I think this is going to be amazing. So the way we're going to start this project is we're going to start isolating the stamp pieces and then I can collage them. So if you haven't worked with tissue paper before, you always take out the back layer, which I'll show you how to do in a moment. And then when you want to get a specific piece out, you take your handy dandy Q-tip and then you sort of just trim around where you want in water. And then you can tear it. It easily tears. I think I'm going to take the whole top of this carnation, even though that's going to be way bigger than what I need for the book. And it very easily tears out. It's actually kind of challenging to cut tissue paper, which you wouldn't think it would be because, it's tissue paper. But it must be just sort of the way that it is woven. It just doesn't ever tear the way you want it to tear. So when you add a little water, it tears right along the edge of your water line really easily. So I think I'm just going to take those two from that piece. And then I have this little nest that has a postage marking on it. This is so pretty, it's hard for me to think about taking it, but I just really, really like it. So I'm going to do like a square. And I might leave the bird because I might use the bird somewhere else down the line. And this is where that water tearing helps you get pretty accurate, where I shouldn't tear into the bird, and I did not, if you could see. So now I have those pieces. Put that one aside. Okay, so then this here, I really love that. So I'm going to open my napkin, and I'm actually going to do something I don't usually do, which is cut. And the only reason I'm going to cut that is I may want that straight edge, and it'll be easier for me to work with. I guess I should have put my little cut pieces somewhere else so they don't fly about. Okay. So now I have my piece of napkin. I'm going to take my extra piece of washi tape and I push down and peel up quickly. And that helps get to that extra piece of lining. And just to make sure there isn't another piece, which sometimes there is, and there is, I go on the corner and do a tear. And as you can see, there is another layer, which sometimes you don't even see that is there. But when you remove that final lining, it just gets even more translucent, which is really lovely. And this might be really pretty as the cover. I mean, look at, you almost don't have to do much of anything. So because of that, I think what I'm going to do is hope my dogs stop barking. And I'm going to get a ruler. And I'm going to cut. I'm going to do my little, make sure that I have plenty of room for the cover. And I'm going to go in with my Q-tip full of water. And then I'm going to gently rip. Now, because this napkin might just be so perfect and I don't need to do much more, I'm going to put it right on. I love how it has that figure there and the figure there. So I think I'm just going to literally attach this as it is for now. So what I usually do is I usually don't put the really thinned out Mod Podge down to attach the napkin. I usually take the full Mod Podge just so that it really sticks well. And I put a nice thin layer of Mod Podge all over the book. I think I need just a teeny bit more. Then I'm going to lay this out the way I want it on my book. And I always start from one end and then sort of brush my way slowly across. Because this is such a small book. And then I take my thinned out Mod Podge and very lightly, because the thinned out can sometimes make wrinkles, so I just do a very little bit, just like that. And then I can turn my book and again go right over the spine with the regular Mod Podge. And brush that down. And if there's a wrinkle, I just kind of like brush it out or brush it in. And then I'm going to Mod Podge this piece too, but I want this to dry first. So I'm just going to sort of let this piece flatten out. And actually, because it is a board book and it lays so flat, we can even do this side as well. And this is even easier than what I did last night, which was take a collection of little pieces and collage them down. Now there's a line here, and this is where I can definitely do some collaging. I have to decide if I want a stamp on the back. So let's look at this while this is drying. We're going to move this. And I'm going to look and see. I like this purple because it goes with the one that I already did. Look at all those stamps. That's fabulous. So I'm going to actually cut a couple just because I need this to be, I don't want to lose any of these stamps for other purposes, but I think this little corner will give me just what I need. So I'm going to cut that out. And I'm going to do that little washi tape trick that I showed you before. And you can use Scotch tape too, or any kind of tape that will just grab one layer. It's just that when I have little washi tape scraps, I just sort of stick them on my desk. Now it doesn't feel like there's another layer, but just to be certain, and what do you know, there is. It's very tricky to get that last layer off sometimes. And as I said, I don't usually cut because I like a ragged layer when I Mod Podge. I think it just comes out better with the napkins. But in this case, I don't want to ruin any of these stamps. So I'm actually going to cut them out, which is not my typical thing with a napkin. I think hard edges of napkins show when you're doing the napkin collaging, and I don't like that. I'd rather it to be a little bit of like a torn look. And I'm going to cut these out. And what I really like about napkin collaging is you can keep layering. They are so translucent that you can stop at one layer if you want, but I'm going to keep that way. Okay, so now if I come back in, I want this, this is the line that bothers me. I don't like when there's a straight line with a napkin. In fact, I should have made this more of a torn, and I think I can because it's wet and do that. I just think it looks so much better when it's not a straight edge. Okay, and now I could come in with another stamp, which probably won't look as much like a stamp because that edge is not there. But we will hope. Maybe this one looks more like a stamp. I think I'm going to put down this blue like that first. My glasses were touching. Okay, so I'm going to overlap this just a hair. And go in with that thinner Mod Podge and just paint that on. And then I'm going to come in with some of those other little bits and pieces I had. So let's see what I had. I had this nest that has the postage And you can see, I think I'm going to make that into sort of more of a, although I don't know if I want this on top. Let's see which other one I had. I had just a black one. I think that one will fit in better. So I'm just going to take my Q-tip and peel that off. And I go in at this point with my thinned out glue. I find that that is enough when the first one layer has already been glued down. I gently tap it just to put it in place. And then I will paint in that very, very thin Mod Podge. And it almost just like melts into the design. And now I have to decide if I want to try to put in the corner of a stamp, or maybe I want to put in, let's see, another. This looks like a stamp right here, and it's small, and I like that. Actually, it is a stamp. It says 5. I don't know if it's cents or crowns. And that would look good right there on the corner. And you can just leave it to dry, or you can try to peel it. And then I need something down along the side here. Let's see what else I had. Sometimes just writing is really pretty. Now, because I didn't have anything glued on there before, I will just put a little tiny dab of regular Mod Podge. And I think I want it to be like this. And because it's so thin, you can still see the postage mark underneath. Like that. So now going back to the cover, let me just look at my little snippets, make sure there isn't anything that I want to use on the front still. I think the nest is just would be too busy. And these are so big that using them in the corner will be pretty, but you won't know that it's a stamp. Well, that's awfully pretty with the purple. I kind of like the butterfly. I'd like that butterfly. I guess I could do it that way. I'm not sure it will look like a stamp, but I'll really like that butterfly in there. And we'll still be able to see the numbers. Now, if you overpaint, you'll do what I just did, which is slightly tear that napkin. It will be fine because I'm going to make the edges a little bit tattered. But you want to be careful of that. And then what you can do is you can always come in and you can trim all of that off. or you can pull the napkin into the other side and make it part of the inside collage. Let's see if we can fold this guy up. I'm going to have to snip him because he's not going to fold properly. You can always go back through and cut after whatever doesn't quite collage down. You have to just be very careful where you touch the napkin as it's drying because you don't want to pull it up. So we're just going to let that dry. And while we let that dry, I'm just going to show you that on this book, when I did this, and this is all napkin, this is significantly thinner of a paper than this one is. So when all of that collage was done, it started bowing. So what I did was I closed the book, and this was almost dry. The top was dry to the touch. It was just that you could tell the fibers of the board were still wet, and that's what was making it bow. I just took an elastic band and then put pencils on the top and the bottom and drew an elastic band around the edge to keep it nice and closed, to dry flat so it didn't bow. And I put the pencil in the top and the pencil in the bottom. That way I didn't get that edge, the elastic didn't dig into the edges, and I let it dry like this. And then afterwards I had put on the washi tape you see here. So we don't need to do that for this book because if you close it, you'll see there's no bowing. But because we're drying it opened, when it's about 3/4 of the way dry to the touch, I will probably put an elastic band on this one as well, just so that those folds where it bends work fine in the end and don't get stuck open. So let's let this dry, and then I will be back with another installment.